Hey guys, so in this lecture we are going to be doing JSX, and I'm sure you would have heard about it a lot. And if you recollect from our previous lecture, we already had the workspace set up with the hello world. So you can expect that when you go back, you will have a JSX. So we already did the setup. Now we're doing JSX, and I will start from the start folder and the final code will be in the final folder. So that's what we are going to do, and let's get started. Okay. So React uses JSX for templating instead of the regular JavaScript. It is not necessary to use it, but there are some pros that comes along with it. So before even we go into the code, let me explain you what are the benefits of using JSX. JSX is faster because it performs optimization while compiling code to JavaScript. So it optimizes your code when it's compiling it to JavaScript. It is also type safe, and most of the errors can be caught during compilation. JSX makes it easier and faster to write templates if you are familiar with HTML. So it's basically the whole motto of React is update only what's necessary to be updated. And JSX helps you do that by making everything into a smaller template in JavaScript. So JSX looks like regular HTML in most cases. Let's see how we write it. So the biggest thing is when you write a component, you extend a class called component, and this component comes in from the React library. So you extend React and component, and then you say class, whatever class it is, and then do an extend of component. And then every time you return something, you usually return the HTML that you want to display on the screen. So every component will have a render method, and every render method will have a return statement. And if you have a lot of HTML, you have to make sure that you enclose it into a parent HTML. Now enough of that, let's try to see some example. So we already have what is JSX. Let's quickly add one more h4 tag. Say hello world. Let's save it, the page should refresh and you should see hello world out here. Alright, so now the page refreshes and we see hello world out here. Easy peasy, right? Don't worry about how the context works as so far, but just imagine that if you put anything into a class component, inside a render method and in the return statement will display out there. Now we will talk in detail about each of these items in the later lectures, but let's focus on the HTML part of this right now and how the components work or how nesting works, which is what we are going to do the next. So let's see the first thing, which is nested elements. So just like in HTML, you can have a div, then you can have a paragraph or multiple tags inside that div, etc. Similarly, we can have something similar for JSX. And if you want to return elements, you need to make sure you wrap it into a tag. You cannot just do. So if I type in something here, it will definitely be displayed. Let's say this, save it, and it should display it on the screen out here. But if I do it outside this block, it will probably give me an exception. Let's see that. And it gives me an exception saying that this is an unexpected token. So let's save it and it should refresh the page. Let's remove this also. So usually the way you do it is you organize everything. So if you see, this is an app header, the way they have organized it. Similarly, there's a content that they have. You can also continue to have attributes. So just the way we have custom attributes in HTML, we can have the same custom attributes in React. And again, the pattern is still the same. What you need to do is you need to have the custom attribute with data hyphen. So that's the standard we follow. If you need to add a custom attribute to a tag, you do a data hyphen my attribute. It's equal to something, and whatever you want to type in as the attribute. The next thing is you can also put in JavaScript expressions. So for instance, I have another p tag and I need to put a JavaScript expression. So the way I can put a JavaScript expression is I use the brackets. And if you remember, when you use JavaScript, just plain old JavaScript, you put a $sign and the open and close brackets. So here we just do an open and close bracket, and let's do 1 + 1 and save it. So this should give an answer of 2 onto the screen. You see that? So you can use JavaScript expressions in the curly brackets. You cannot use if-else statements inside JSX, but you can use conditional or ternary expressions instead. Let's see an example. So let's just copy this, and instead of expressions, let's make this a ternary operation. And how will we do that? Let's say let's define a variable I before we return. So variable I is equal to 1. Now let's do an if I is double equals 1, then display true, else display false. Let's save this, and we should see a true on the screen, and we see a true. Let's update the value of I to 2, and we should start seeing false. So you can use the ternary operator in JSX. You can also do styling using JSX, and in fact the motto of React pretty much is to use inline styles. So React recommends using inline styles. When you want to set inline styles, you need to use camel case syntax. React will automatically append the px after the number value on specific elements. So let's see an example. Let's create a style variable, which is variable myStyle. And you need to treat it as a JavaScript object because React internally converts it into style. So let's say if I want to increase the font size to, let's say 100 pixels. So I just give 100. I do not give a px because JavaScript expects only numbers, and React will internally convert it to pixels. And let's say I want to do the color of red. Okay. Let me save this. So my style is set, and when you give the color red, you need to make sure it's in the quotes. Okay. Now let's put my style to use, and let's use it on our h tag. Let's say hello world. So we'll do a style is equals to, and then you pass in the attribute, which is my style. Let's save it, and there you go. You see the size has increased. You see the color has changed. Let's make this 20 pixels. It's too big for us. Okay, so that's how you can use styling in React. Just like JavaScript, you may want to comment on certain elements in React as well. Now, the way you do a comment in React is you have to put the comments inside the open close curly braces. So this is where you say end of div statement, for example. That's a single line JavaScript comment. You can also give a multi-line JavaScript comment, but again, it has to be in the curly brackets. So let's do that. This is multi-line curly brackets folded content. So nothing will display on the screen when you save it. And we have a problem. Oh, because the moment you put something onto the screen out here, it will be treated as a comment, and that's why you need to make sure you give the right spacing when you use a single line comment. But for multi-line comments, it's okay to put everything onto the single line because you have the start and the end. Now, the naming convention for HTML tags are always lowercase, like tag names. But if you define a React component, you always do an uppercase, like app, for instance. So the first letter is always up, so you can relate to it as the class naming conventions that we use in Java. I think that's the closest you can get. I think that was all to get us started with JSX. I'll see you in the next class.